like we've been talking about, you're progressing well in pretty much all the lifts, both like the regular kind of strength lifts, as well as these odd movements like the Jefferson curls and all these sorts of things. So, with the symptoms in your back being relatively stable or like slightly trending downhill with squatting and hinging, what I want to do is keep the intensity and variations of those movements kind of stable for this next block and see if we can just get the symptoms to trend downwards a little bit more instead of just focusing on like continuing to progress those at this point in time. Um, Having that like relatively stable or slightly downhill symptoms is definitely still a good sign. I just want to see if we kind of level out the training stress for those movements, if that'll help it trend downwards a little bit faster. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Cool.
Trying to think. I wish I I wish I knew what my future work was like because I'm trying to think if anything in the past month was like stress, sleep, and whatnot, like that, the other factors that are out of your control that might have been
Mhm.
contributing to that. I wish I could say for this goal too on this next block, it's like, well, if March sucks work wise, then like even in that scenario, it's possible that that will be driving but I'll make sure to record that, hopefully, right?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll do that. And then progressing upper body work, I feel like that's been being handled very well. Haven't really had many issues with any upper body training, Matt.
No, I don't think so. I think I know you've been programming, for example, like rows. They're always like usually chest supported,
Mhm.
or mostly chest supported, and that's fine. That works well for me because I used to have trouble if I did
Like a bent over
non-supported
row.
rows. Yeah,
Yeah.
um, but I'm okay too. At some point, I know that would conflict with this block, but in the future blocks, if you're like, oh, let's introduce like at least one day or one lift is also because like you said, the more like variation that we can like begin introducing and then progressing on. I'm cool with that too for the upper body days.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually what I was thinking about doing is including one kind of non-chest supported upper body rowing exercise
Okay.
um, in this block, whether maybe something like a single arm row, because that's technically unsupported, although it still is kind of supported a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, or maybe something like a seated cable row. That might be a little bit
Yeah.
more feasible, a little bit harder on the lower back. So I think adding that in and then keeping the other main row variation on the other upper body day, still chest supported just to distribute
Yeah.
the stress on the back. Um, and then as far as rep ranges go for the upper body work, for the hypertrophy stuff, obviously most things have been 8+ reps per set. That
Yeah.
rep range still kind of preferable, or do you mind kind of dipping down into like the 6+ rep range, or how do you feel about that?
Oh yeah, I can do the especially if it's like, not the movement we just talked about
Yeah.
where but if it's like a chest movement and especially if it's a machine, then yeah, we could do like 6 to 8 reps.
Cool.
Because if you give me like barbell bench and we're like four, do a set of four like real heavy strength, it's like, well, I don't have a spotter, so at some point, like I will be cutting myself short just to be cheap it out a little bit.
Mhm.
But like on the eight side, I can push it pretty well for that. But if it's a machine like chest press or what's trying to think, I could do the single arm dumbbell row also like that. Probably that'd still be a little stressful though. I'm trying to think of another one. Shoulder work. I could do a lateral raise at that low rep, but it'd probably be kind of hard. Press. I could do a shoulder press that rep. So I'm open to it as long as it's just like yeah, not the one that would like um compromise the back essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Something that's
Uh,
easy to train
yeah,
at a higher intensity without the safety concern of no
yeah.
spotters or anything like that. We can definitely make that happen.
I like personally. I actually beforehand am a big fan of just like, oh yeah, if you can do like in 6 to 8 reps, like that's more efficient and like
Mhm.
from a like reps in reserve standpoint, easier for me to dial in because
Yeah.
like reps in reserve at 17 reps, you're just like mentally kind of tired.
Hmm. Hmm.
While at six, it's like, oh yeah, that only takes like 30 seconds to hit. Like I can get there, so I'm cool
Yeah.
with it.
Okay. Awesome. And then for the accessory work, whoa, this thing glitched out for a second. Let's see, where were we? Yes, for the accessory work, I definitely think that we're in a good spot to continue progressing some of like the Jefferson curls. How I'll probably do that is we have them very frequently throughout the week. So what I want to do is progress the intensity on just a couple of the exposures to Jefferson curls.
Okay.
So probably either on just the upper days or just the lower days. I'll have you do a Jefferson curl variation that we're going to load up a little bit heavier. Nothing like we're not going to do like some 4 rep max type effort or anything like that.
Yeah.
Um, but load it up a little bit heavier, and then have the other exposures to the Jefferson curls still be lighter loads, higher rep range, just building up some tolerance and flexibility in that position. Um, and then really continuing to hammer the flexibility for ankles and hips to make the squatting position a little bit more efficient. So definitely keep on working ankle dorsiflexion quite intensely. Um, Working some like active hip range of motion too, and then incorporating some actual like um, pause goblet squatting with that. So, for example, like
Okay.
how we have the band ankle mobilization and the foot elevated kettlebell stretch.
Hmm.
Um, what I'm thinking is either doing something like longer duration static stretch, like that foot elevated kettlebell stretch, and then supersetting that with a kettlebell goblet squat or just like a dumbbell goblet squat
Yeah.
where you're slowly lowering for the eccentric, holding the bottom with tension for like 5 to 10 seconds, and then coming back up for anywhere between 3 to 5 reps. Just to have a little bit more carryover to the actual squat and get a little bit more time in that squatting position, which should help improve that a little bit faster too. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Love that. Yeah, I kind of like it on these other days, on the like accessory days, mixing that
Mhm.
in. Because that's like, oh yeah, we did ankle mobility. Now let's like put it in action. So I like that.
Yeah. Awesome, man. So those were some like the bigger changes that I was kind of thinking about for this block. Um, are there any changes or anything that you would like to see added in or taken out or any like preferences on your end?
I got nothing immediately, but I was gonna say I don't know if you plan to program them, but I was just want to make sure that you know I have a reverse, no, not reverse. I have a 45-degree hyper
Hmm.
extension machine and the straight equivalent, you know, the big Rogue machine.
Like the GHD?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
GHD.
yeah, yeah.
Um, I don't know if you had those in mind, but I'm also okay with if you want to introduce those. I'm open, but I don't know if you already have those planned. But I have those machines available at my gym that I go to.
Yeah. I think
So
adding in the 45-degree hip extension as a secondary hinge on your like first lower body day. So we'll still have you do box squats as the main kind of movement.
yeah,
And then switching out uh, the barbell hip thrust for the 45-degree extension.
okay,
Another great hinge mo motion. It actually, again, obviously taxes your back a little bit harder than the hip thrust, but without as much demand as like a barbell RDL. So I think that's a very good thing to kind of sub in there.
and if you put that in, I might message you just to make sure because I've seen like videos of everyone having their different interpretation of how to do that.
Hmm.
Um, where if I remember right, like glute focus, they try to like maintain stable spine like through the movement. If I don't know if I'm describing this right or if you're
Hmm.
tracking what I'm saying. Versus like, oh, do the whole like relax the spine going down and like stiffen as you go up. Um, but I can wait till the program begins for that, or either way.
Yeah, so with either with the 45-degree or the GHD, I kind of count those two as actually like different exercises and I
Okay.
name them differently too. So if I say like a 45-degree or a GHD hip extension, then I want the pad set lower, like below the level of your hip. I want you to keep the spine as stable and unmoving as possible and try just to move from the hips so that the majority of the training stress is focused on the hamstrings and glutes. Um, and then if I program a back extension, then I want you to set the pad higher up so that the actual like pad is coming up to your lower abdomen. And instead of trying to move from the hips, I actually want you to curl and then extend your spine as much as possible. So
Okay.
I kind of phrase them differently so you know which body region should be like the moving part and like the focus of the exercise, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. No, that was the only thing